morning, and thank you for joining us for the 13th Annual Central Delaware Economic Summit. I'm Cornelia Johnson, Vice President and Campus Director at Delaware Technical Community College, Terry Campus in Dover, Delaware. I look forward to today as local businesses, government officials, community members, and students all come together to hear about improving economic life in Central Delaware. Today, Governor Carney will share Delaware's vision for economic development across the first state. Our keynote speaker, Linda Parkowski, Executive Director for the Kent Economic Partnership, will highlight new economic development opportunities in and around Central Delaware. And our panelists from federal and state agencies and local businesses will discuss changes in the workplace and workspace due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as key strategies and steps put in place to chart the course for economic stability and growth. Throughout the morning, we will have brief transformational infomercials highlighting our sponsors, who we want to thank for their support. Again, thank you for joining us today as we look forward to another great event. And now I would like to introduce the president of Delaware Tech, Dr. Mark Brainerd. Dr. Brainerd was appointed the 5th president of Delaware Technical Community College in 2014. Prior to assuming his current role, Dr. Brainerd spent 3 decades in a series of executive-level leadership roles in higher education, business, government, legislative arenas in Delaware, serving as Executive Vice President of the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce and Chief of Staff for the House Minority Caucus and former Governor Ruth Ann Minner. Since being appointed President of Delaware Tech, Dr. Brainerd has implemented a number of initiatives, such as creating a college-wide culture that embraces innovation, developing a statewide program for high school students to address the manufacturing skills gap in Delaware, and establishing a variety of support programs for veterans. Dr. Brainerd holds an associate degree in criminal justice from Delaware Tech, a bachelor's degree in behavioral science from Wilmington University, and a law degree from Widener Law School. At this time, please join me in welcoming our college president, Dr. Mark Brainerd, to the podium for opening remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Cornelia, for that kind introduction, and thank you to the committee for this invitation to speak to you this morning. First, welcome to the Central Delaware Economic Summit. This is an annual event that everyone looks forward to because it's an opportunity to look at economic activity in Kent County and also have pointed expert conversations around what we can do better to plan for the future. But first, I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in planning this event. Needless to say, planning events like this are a challenge in the best of circumstances. But in an environment like this, it's unbelievably difficult to plan, execute, and carry out a high-quality event like this. So first of all, our thanks to Cornelia Johnson and the entire campus team here at Terry Campus, the committee that's been working for months, literally, to put the program together, and obviously our guest speakers today who are going to provide you with a lot of expertise and insights about the economic conditions here, not just in the county, but throughout our state. Like all of you, this past year and a half has been especially difficult here at Delaware Tech. It's literally been a very unforgiving and very demanding environment to provide learning opportunities for our students. As you all know, the current health crisis has been difficult for everyone in our community, whether it's our K-12 schools, our nonprofit world, and especially our businesses that have really struggled to not just stay open, but thrive and compete. So it's really impacted our state economy as well. But as we've all learned, out of these crises come opportunities. While we've all transformed how we do our business, many in the workforce are also transforming what they would like to do now. Many folks are looking at their skills and deciding to retool their skills and maybe find a path out of a low-paying job. Some folks are assessing the types of careers that they're currently in, and they want something more gratifying. So we're hearing that there's a lot of transformation in the workforce along with transformation in the economy. So, as all of you have known, Delaware Tech has always been committed to helping Delawareans connect with high-paying, high-quality jobs through access to our high-quality programs to ensure that students come out of those programs with the skills, knowledge, and competencies that all of you as employers need from our graduates on day one. So, as I said, we're taking opportunities out of this crisis. We're taking a fresh look at our programs. We're developing new programs. We're retooling the existing programs. And we're going to continue to work closely with all of you, our business partners, to help you all meet your needs in developing and retaining a high-quality workforce. The one thing that I think many of us should take a look at and hopefully benefit from is a piece of legislation that passed last year. As many of you might have heard, the General Assembly passed legislation that would expand the Seed Scholarship Program. As some of you know, Delaware Tech led Delaware, the state of Delaware, led the free community college movement in this country through the implementation of a Seed Scholarship, which basically said that any high school graduate who worked hard, got good grades, and stayed out of trouble could get access tuition-free to associate degree programs throughout our state. Through the leadership of Senator Poore and Representative Longhurst, the Seed Scholarship Program has been expanded to include workforce development programs, which includes certifications and targeted competency programs that many of you might be looking for, certifications in things like allied health, advanced manufacturing, HVAC, welding, those sort of programs. So I believe Seed Plus, this program is going to be a game changer for Delaware businesses, because all of you who are looking for an employee with those short-term credentials will now be able to gain access to that pipeline of workers as a result of this legislation. As I said, workforce is key to every business, especially those that are trying to navigate the current environment, not just in Delaware, but throughout the country. And I believe the Seed Plus Scholarship Program is going to be a game changer for the years ahead. As you've heard me say before, our job here at Delaware Tech is listening. We listen to our students, we listen to our employees, we listen to you, our business partners. We find out what your skills, what your competencies, and what the experiences are that you need from our graduates, and then we retool our programs accordingly. We'll continue to do that. So as always, we hope that you'll continue to tell us exactly what you need, whether it's a change in a current program or whether we need to develop a new program to meet your needs. So please, let us know. So in closing, I'd just like to thank you again for being here. Enjoy your day. And most important, I want to thank you all for your continuing partnership with Delaware Tech. At this time, I have the honor of introducing our governor, John Carney. Needless to say, Governor Carney is no stranger to leading our state through very difficult times. You might remember that when he came into office in January 2017, he walked into a situation where the state had a $400 million deficit. The governor tackled those problems. He retooled our finances, and more importantly, he took an antiquated economic development structure in our state, including our state agencies, and retooled that, and I believe that just a few years later, we're really seeing the benefits of that work. So needless to say, the governor really stepped up in 2017 and positioned us for where we are today to be able to navigate probably the most difficult challenge, and that's been a global health crisis. So in that respect, I think our governor should be applauded for tackling these challenges that our state has seen. Unlike some governors, he didn't run away from those challenges. He made difficult decisions. He made them based on science and fact, and I think we're coming out of it now thanks to his leadership and other leaders throughout our state. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Governor John Carney. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Governor John Carney. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Brainerd for the opportunity to speak today at this economic summit and for sponsoring this event once again this year. Even though we're gathering virtually again, I'm pleased to join you. There's no doubt Delaware's business community has demonstrated incredible resilience throughout the past 2 years of this COVID-19 pandemic. Our focus has been on maintaining both a healthy community and a healthy economy, and it's been a very difficult challenge. Businesses and nonprofit agencies have made significant sacrifices over the last year, some more than others, and have to protect their employees, customers, and the larger community. We've provided unprecedented support for Delaware businesses to help them survive this past year. Our relief grant program has offered $350 million to assist mostly small businesses whose operations have been impacted by this global pandemic. We continue to award EDGE grants to some of the most innovative small businesses here in our state. I've been really encouraged by the growth and resilience our small businesses grantees have shown this past year. The Forward Delaware program, supported by Del Tech, has been a crucial part of our plan to provide training and employment opportunities for Delawareans as we reignite our local economy. And the capital budget we passed earlier this year with the support of the General Assembly provides historic funding for Delaware's infrastructure. This $1.3 billion investment is the largest bond bill in the state history and will help revitalize businesses across our state. Upgraded broadband and school construction and economic assets will provide good jobs and encourage development across Delaware. We appreciate everyone's cooperation in following public health guidelines and making operational adjustments since this pandemic began. Our fight with COVID-19 is not over for sure, but I'm encouraged by Delawareans across the state wearing masks and getting vaccinated. Undoubtedly, vaccinations are the solution to the challenges of COVID-19. The vaccines have proven to be extremely effective in preventing serious illness and hospitalization. Let's keep working together to keep our communities and our economy healthy and strong. Thank you very much for your participation in the summit today, and I hope to see you in person sometime soon across our state.
Welcome, everyone, to the 13th Annual Central Delaware Economic Summit. It was the Kent County Economic Summit. We did have a name change this year. And I want to thank Dr. Brainerd for his remarks this morning and thank the governor for joining us as well. My name is Richard Rexroad. I am the instructional coordinator for the business department right here at the Terry campus, and we do appreciate you all joining us today. I will be serving as today's moderator for our panel discussions, and we are happy that you're going to be here and joining us. We do invite you to ask questions of our panelists this morning and each of our speakers. So if you could, just type those in the chat, right in the Zoom chat, so that we can get those up to the podium and ask each of our panelists. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event. Linda Parkowski is the executive director of the Kent Economic Partnership, and in that role, she is charged with business attraction, retention, and expansion throughout Central Delaware. Since taking on her role with the KEP, she has located 6 new businesses and assisted 7 business expansions, resulting in over 350 new, good-paying jobs in this market. Linda has more than 20 years of experience in the Delaware tourism, hospitality, and economic development industries, including a stint as general manager of both the Sheraton Dover Hotel and the Wild Quail Golf and Country Club in Wyoming, Delaware. Additionally, Linda serves on many boards, including the Riverfront Development Board, Leadership Delaware, State Division of Parks and Recreation, Kent County Tourism, and the Downtown Dover Partnership. Please join me in welcoming Linda Parkowski.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here with you today. I just want to say that, Del Tech is such an integral partner in everything that we do for economic development within Central Delaware, and I really appreciate the collaboration. As you can see when I go through my PowerPoint, it takes a village. It takes all of us working together, whether it's the Division of Small Business, the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, the Kent Economic Partnership, government, leaders. It takes all of us to make it work. And I just want to say, I get Kent County. I have been a Kent County resident since 1980. And I took this job because I wanted to make a difference in the county where I've lived and where I've raised my children and where I've had a very good life. So with all that, I'll get started. I work for the Kent Economic Partnership. This is our outwardly facing name and brand, Choose Central Delaware. We changed it because people didn't really know, were we Kent County, Maryland, were we Kent County, Delaware, were we Kent County. So we wanted to give them something that would make them come and look at us. So Choose is an action word, Central tells you where you are, and Delaware's highly searched. So what is the KEP? It's a public-private partnership, and it's collaboration. Kent County Levy Court, the state of Delaware, municipalities throughout Kent County, the Greater Kent Committee, a lot of our business leaders are all in this together to make Central Delaware a place where businesses want to locate and a place where businesses want to expand. These are just some of our public partners. Some of the smaller municipalities join because they want to be part of this. Also, some of our business sponsors throughout Delaware and Central Delaware. So what do? We provide services. We send leads out on inquiries that we get in. We help with site selection assistance and site selection tours. We have business outreach programs, and we list sites on our website. We also connect businesses with capital and financing programs, business incentives, workforce and higher education resources. That's where Del Tech and our other colleges in the area come in. And we also spend a little bit of time with regulatory assistance. We cover all of Kent County, even the parts of some of the municipalities that are in other counties, such as Smyrna and Milford. So the best thing that ever happened to Kent County as far as economic development was the Greater Kent Committee commissioned a study on economic analysis in 2018. And what that did was give us a blueprint. It allowed us to actually focus and target industries that were going to be successful here in Kent County. Some of those industries were small to medium manufacturers, distribution, logistics, and healthcare. So how did we target? Number one, we completely rebuilt a website and identified ready sites. And the website has become extremely important. It's one of the top 10 economic development websites in the country. Now, this is Choose Central Delaware. We did targeted marketing. We weren't helter-skelter going after this and going after that. We really concentrated in our targeted industries. And then we targeted site selectors. They're the people that decide where a company is going to locate and do business. My first year, I attended 12 trade shows in distribution, logistics, warehousing, senior housing, site selectors, and some retail commercial. And then we worked to put some regional and national advertising out in the market. Nobody had heard of Central Delaware. We weren't getting our story out. And since COVID, when COVID hit and most of the trade shows and conferences shut down, we switched that budget into regional and national advertising. And I can tell you that it has worked. And it's in targeted publications that are site selectors would look at or business owners would look at. I get calls from California, Ohio, Midwest, all over because of this regional and national advertising. Some of our municipalities traveled with us to trade shows. We went to the Delaware State News and asked them to please, what can you do to help us get the word out that we have great schools in Central Delaware? We have fabulous schools. So they stepped up to the plate, created the Excellence in Education grant program along with a publication. So now we're highlighting our schools and telling our story about how good they are. They also publish our economic profile, which is a book that gives you all the information, stats that you would need if you were a business looking to come to Central Delaware. The homepage of our website gets so many hits. It's absolutely phenomenal. And what happens is companies have access to so much data these days. They're doing their homework. way before they either pick up the phone or send an email. So that website is so extremely important to us, and it brings results. We list all of the industrial, commercial sites within Central Delaware on there with descriptions and pictures. We have a presence on social media. Do I think that that's going to bring us leads? Probably not, but it's good. It's a good way to get our word out locally and for people to know, such as our sponsors and municipalities, what we're doing. We've created all kinds of marketing materials for the web and for print. And then we have a business retention and expansion program. We plan site visits to existing businesses. As Richard said, we've helped 6 existing businesses expand. Last night I was just with an existing business that wants to expand, and they are just as important as locating a new business into the area, because you're growing that business that already is familiar with your area. So this is one of the important things that we send out. We send it to brokers, municipalities, town planners. It's a lead. When an inquiry comes into us, we send out this broadcast lead and ask for any properties or sites to send into us, and then we'll submit that to the company or person that submitted the lead to us. There are all kinds of incentives and tools within the state and local that can help encourage a company to locate here in Central Delaware. In Kent County specifically, we have a strategic fund, and have used that on a couple companies, and we also have a tax abatement program. There's workforce training programs, there's tax credit programs, there's a lot of programs for businesses to access. And we're kind of their liaison in those programs. So you want to know what I've been doing, and we've had some wins. And we in Kent County, Central Delaware, need to be proud of this. This is the first time in many years that we have had this many companies want to locate or expand within our area. And one of the things before I get to wins is it's only going to get better, especially in our targeted industries. There are not that many remaining sites within southern Delaware, southern Pennsylvania, northern Newcastle. It's only going to move down, and Kent County is going to be positioned, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So Independent Metal Straps was a manufacturing company located from New York, has about 15 jobs, but they're looking right now to start doing some exporting. So we look for them to grow. MVP Shoreline, I had the help of Laura Whistler with the Division of Small Business on this one, and she and I worked diligently. They ended up, these two companies ended up in the old Pittsburgh Paint and Glass facility, which was a 175,000 square foot building that was empty in Cheswell. And so now we actually have these two companies and USA Fulfillment, which was a homegrown company from Chestertown, Maryland, that had a very small presence in Dover. And Laura Whistler was working with them. I happened to walk into a meeting one day and said, "Are you thinking about expansion?" And they did. So a perfect storm happened. They're a tenant in the PPG building, and now we have close to 180 jobs are in that building right now. NKS is a consolidation outside of Smyrna. They consolidated their warehouses from Newcastle and Milford. You'll see this going up if you ride down Route 1. We help them with TIF funding, transportation infrastructure funding, because on the road coming in, they need a signal and access. Avalon is another one I worked on with Laura Whistler from the Division of Small Business. They were a small manufacturer from Baltimore, needed about 20,000 square feet. That inquiry came in, and the day before I had gotten just an email from Gatehouse Media saying they wanted to sell the Dover Post building. And the Avalon inquiry came in, and we showed them the Dover Post building. They're now renovating that for their 2 manufacturing firms. And the best part is Dover Post stays as a tenant there. Shore Industries, this is one of the most recent one. It is a manufacturer that does this large sails and awnings. So if you see those large sails or in country clubs or restaurants, this industry was impacted positively. The same with USA Fulfillment when COVID hit. Everybody wanted outdoor space. They needed a place to cover it. They were located in Denton, and they've moved their employees over here. They're looking to expand the building in the future and add more jobs. And this is the big win. I think if anybody travels the MIA Parkway, you'll see Delmarva Corrugated Packaging. And this one we worked with the Delaware Prosperity Partnership to bring this in. This company had very specific criteria. They needed to be in an opportunity zone, it needed to be zoned industrial, and it needed rail access. And I can tell you for a fact, there aren't that many industrial sites within central Delaware that meet that criteria. So they really were looking in Southeast Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and Newcastle. We threw in this site on New Burton Road, and it made it into the final round. So we're really fortunate that this company hopefully will open in October and have 150 good paying jobs. And they're going to have an R&D department in there where they're going to be working on recyclable boxes. We have about 25 projects in the queue, all different types. We focused on manufacturing and distribution, so the most of them are manufacturing, distribution, some healthcare, and some recycling. So what's the future of Central Delaware? Well, we're preparing for that, because when we came into this job, we realized that some of the groundwork wasn't there, and so we need to help get that along. If we're going to be a distribution hub, we needed to know how are we going to get this freight from the east part of central Delaware to the west. And so there's a study that's ongoing about east-west freight route. And I can tell you, if you drive through from the east part of central to the western part, you're going 25 miles an hour through a city. And that's not conducive for attracting distribution businesses. The Dover Freight Study also is studying the industrial. We have a large industrial area right next to Dover Air Force Base on Horsebomb Road to Lafferty Lane. This study is looking at how can we connect Garrison Oak, the industrial park, to the eastern Dover industrial area. That study is finished, and there are hopefully recommendations will be going to DelDOT for that. A study that I'm very passionate about is preserving industrial sites along the rail line. Rail has become extremely important in economic development, and what has happened in the past in central Delaware, if you look all along our rail line, which runs right through the center of our county, there's housing developments right next to it, the rail line. So this, for the future, we need to start preserving these sites for industrial uses. We're master planning for the future, the Harrington Industrial Park, which would, when completed, would be one of the only industrial parks in the state that has rail access. We're also master planned Little Heaven, Frederica, and the East Dover industrial area. The Civil Air Terminal is also still moving along. The joint use agreement hopefully will be signed by the end of the year. And there's a lot of possibilities on what this could be. So I have great hope for that something will actually happen. We also have commissioned Rockport 2.0, which is a more in-depth analysis of what they did in 2018. And we wanted them to place workforce. You can give us targeted industries. We know we need them, but if we don't have the workforce to fill those industries, we're really wasting a lot of time. And also we realized that the targeted industries for Milford may be different than Smyrna and Dover, so they're going to analyze that. When COVID hit, we created the Kent County Broadband Committee. I can tell you they've done great work. Hopefully the state's going to make an announcement soon on some of the broadband initiatives that are going to happen quickly, hopefully before the end of the year. We realized with COVID, there were issues and people were not able to work remotely as well as they could in some areas. We've filmed virtual site tours. We've gotten testimonials from our 3 large manufacturers. And I think that's it. And questions. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer it. I told Richard I talk pretty fast. Don't worry, I can get through my 43 slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
So, Linda, what are you most excited about here coming up in the next 6 months, maybe 12 months? What really are you highlighting that you think is going to be most exciting for Central Delaware?
Well, I think when some of those studies that are being done are completed, I think we're going to have direction. I've always been one to believe in the data. If you follow the data, you usually don't go wrong. So those studies are extremely important for us to know where to focus our attention. I'm a party of one, and I have a second person in my office. So there's just 2 people doing economic development for Central Delaware. I'm excited that we have 25 projects in the queue, and that's growing every single day. And I'm excited that we work together really well in Central Delaware. We collaborate. There isn't a sense of let's outdo each other. There's a sense of how can we lift each other up and make each other better and make Central Delaware a better place for people to live, work, and play.
So one last question. What can we do as a community to really help you? You're an office of 2. What do you think is the greatest need that you have to really promote what you're doing and support you and what all of your efforts in Central Delaware?
Well, I think we in Central Delaware need to tell our story. And we weren't telling our story prior to the reformulation of the Kent Economic Partnership. And I think that we just all need to have pride. Kent County, Central Delaware is a great place to live. It's a great place to work. It's a great place to raise your children. And I think we just need people to know that. We're within, 3 hours of anything that you'd want to see on the East Coast. And, always just, help us get our workforce ready. That's an issue, and Deltech does a really nice job with that. Help us get that workforce prepared for the future. And, these jobs and some of these firms that I'm recruiting, you don't need a full-blown master's degree to do this work. And you're going to be receiving a good-paying job where you can raise your family and buy a home and live in Central Delaware, which is a great place to live.
So I know I said one last question, but there is one question that it came in through the chat. So could you talk a little bit more about the joint use agreement, and will it be freight? Will it be overnight? Can you talk a little bit more about that and just give us some insight there?
Sure. So there was a joint use agreement for the civil air terminal at the Dover Air Force Base, and it expires in 22. And it needed to be renegotiated. And some of the points that were renegotiated in it was that it would be a 50-year agreement. Right now it's 25. And in order to get a company to invest in that area and in the civil air terminal, 25 is not long enough for them to go out and get the financing that they need. So that was one of the points that was renegotiated. Also, that right now, to land at the civil air terminal, you need to give 48 to 24-hour notice. So that it will be going away in the joint use agreement, the new one, and they'll be able to fly in whenever they want and land in that area. We have an incredible asset with the Dover Air Force Base and the length of their runways that I know people have been talking about this, but we're actually going to get this done. Department of Transportation is working diligently. We've had a couple studies done that have told us what is the best use, and hopefully you'll see that whole area along Horse Pond Road and near the Civil Air Terminal. Hopefully you'll see that transformed, I'm hoping, in the next 10 years.
Okay, with that, we thank you, Linda, for your comments. Thank you for your remarks this morning, and we really appreciate the questions that came in from our audience. So we're going to transition into our first panel, and we certainly thank you, Linda, for joining us. Okay, so thank you again, Linda, for joining us this morning, and I certainly appreciate those comments. It's safe to say that the last 18 months have forced us to look at the way we do things in a new way. Excuse me. We've had to adjust our thinking, adapt to new norms, and be creative to keep our organizations moving forward. Collectively, we've come together to find the best practices that not only kept businesses going, but in some cases, seen them flourish. Our first discussion centers on business resources and opportunities, and our guests have each played important roles in helping organizations keep their doors open and promote their continued success. Joining us this morning is John Fleming, who is the District Director of the Small Business Administration, and Jordan Schulteis, who is the Director of the Delaware Division of Small Business. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we spoke about the importance of each of your organizations and the value that they have to the businesses in our communities and each of the things that you guys do. But during this discussion, we want to focus a little bit about what you've done in the last 18 months during the pandemic, but we really want to get into the things that you're working on now. Some of the things that you're focused on as far as current resources, access to capital, greatest opportunities for our businesses that are out there. So John, if you don't mind, can we start with the SBA and some of the things that you're working on? Tell us about some of the highlights that you've gone through over the last 18 months, and then really start talking about the current things you're working on.
Sure. Thank you. As we've all kind of gotten through the pandemic, and as we know, we're still working our way out of it. But when we first came in, SBA was, we used to say, was the best kept secret in the government, and now the secret is no longer a secret. So we immediately stood up a couple of programs directed by Congress that really reached out to small businesses and able to help them. The Paycheck Protection Program was the first one that came out and the most popular. We received millions of applications through that. We added new lenders to help us distribute those funds. The reason why we had to do that through our new lenders is it's easier to leverage such a small agency in order to get those funds out. So that's why we used our lender friends. We doubled the amount of lenders that we used. We went from about 3,000 to about 6,000 lenders. So you might imagine it was quite a task. Over $700 million throughout the country. Just to give you an idea and perspective, the SBA under our programs in the last 18 months has added about $1 trillion to our assistant programs. And if it were a normal year, you'd be looking at about maybe 80 million. So quite an increase. As far as the future, we are in the midst now of getting through all the forgiveness applications for the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. That's where the borrower comes back, the small business person comes back to their lender, and in turn the SBA will turn that loan into a grant, and that's what we call in the forgiveness process. And we're working through millions of those and thousands of exceptions, and it's quite a task to go through. As far as what's moving forward as well, the EIDL program, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, we do have that for the future. We have it until December 31st for COVID. Congress may extend that. I'm not sure. if they will or not. And those applications are online at sba.gov. Our administrator, Isabel Guzman, sorry about that, she has extended and increased the amount from $500,000 to $2 million per borrower under that program. And changes were made to make it easier to use and more use of proceeds. So that was just announced this week. That's something that's coming for the future. And then last but not least, our regular program, we have extended the fee waivers for both 7A and 504. So that's what we got coming for the future. And but stay tuned. I mean, if it's needed, I know Congress will react and get the bill to the president for a more SBA program.
So Jordan, let's get you in on this discussion as well. So talk a little bit about the Division of Small Business, things that you've been doing there, and really highlight some of the things you've gone through over the last 18 months.
Sure. So you all heard from Governor Carney that we had a couple programs that we stood up really quickly. The first one that we did was the HELP loans, the Hospitality Emergency Loan Program. We were able to stand that up within the first week after the first state of emergency was declared. So we knew that getting help to those small businesses really quickly was going to be crucial to giving them the best chance at survival. That program allowed up to $10,000 a month to make sure that people could cover their rent, their electric, and just keep the lights on as they weathered the storm there. We had about $10.5 million in loans that we ended up dispersing, just about 360 businesses that participated overall. The bigger program that I think most people are more familiar with is the DE relief grants. And that was a program that reached about 4,000 businesses. We dispersed almost $200 million. It was meant to cover expenses that arose from the pandemic. So it was to cover PPE, if you needed to install plexiglass barriers, maybe you needed to move your workforce to be remote, so you needed equipment for that. There was a really wide range of things that were eligible under that program. Getting that funding out was a pretty monumental lift, to say the very least. So we're happy to have been able to accomplish that and now move into more of a phase where we are also doing a forgiveness process, and just like they're seeing at the SBA, there's a high volume with a lot of exceptions. So it's going to take us some time, I think, to work through those and work with each individual business to make sure that they're in compliance with the grant that they have through that. Taking a look at what we're doing now, DE Relief Grant Closeout is definitely top of the radar. We have a couple other programs that are open at the moment. The Market Pressure Relief Fund was designed to help state contractors who are experiencing pressure from rising construction materials cost. That program is open through September 30th, and you can find information at our website, delbiz.com. Another thing that we always have ongoing is the Office of Supplier Diversity in our office is always willing to help minority, women, veteran, and disability-owned businesses. They're willing to connect them to other resources who are familiar with the unique challenges that those communities face, and to also help them with the certification process to get them certified as those unique businesses. And finally, I think the bigger program that we have open right now, it's really exciting for us, is the EDGE Grant program. That is a program, we are actually on our fourth round. It is live on our website now, delbiz.com/edge. We had started to run our third round right before the pandemic hit. And obviously we had to pivot very quickly in order to launch the loan program, in order to launch the grant program. And, we're a small division. We have 27 people. So, we said, look, we're going to put this on hold. We don't have the capacity, and we don't think that the environment is right for it at the moment. And that was a really tough pill to swallow. So we were really excited when we were able to pivot back to that this past spring. We had gotten a lot of feedback that said, look, things are still really tough, but we're starting to look at ways to pivot. We're starting to look at ways to expand, and the feedback was great. And we were really encouraged when we posted the application. We got 300 applicants, which was far and above anything we had ever done. We typically 100 was a heavy round prior to that. So to get the 300 was really exciting for us, and then even more encouraging to read through those applications and see the ideas that these entrepreneurs are putting forth, and to see how they're able to pivot, and they're able to come up with this new product and to really move things in a new direction. So it was a very encouraging thing to see. So we're even more excited to now run our fourth round and see those ideas. It's really inspiring to see the things that are happening right here in our local community.
Outstanding. So, you talked a little bit about the SBA, what you've done the last 18 months. So, is some of that funding still available, or how is that working now at the SBA? Are you going to have another round of funding that's out there? What are the capital resources that are out there available for businesses that can jump into and take advantage of?
So right now, the PPP program is the deadline is passed for it. Like I said, we're in the forgiveness phase. Whether we have another round of that is anybody's guess.
Okay.
We're leaning on the EIDL program, economic injury disaster loans, and that has always been around for floods, disasters, tornadoes. And sometimes they open up nationwide when there's an economic downturn, and of course we opened it up. So that's the program available for relief under EIDL. Again, it's December 31st is the current deadline. We always have our what we call our 7A and 504 programs. 504 is low interest loans for purchase of real estate, and 7A is kind of our general program. Normally, businesses will rely on 7A when it comes to maybe a startup business or someone that needs extra collateral, or if they're in an industry that is a little more risky, hospitality, that type of thing. And then last but not least, if the economic conditions will warrant it, then people will lean towards the 7A program, and obviously they are warranted right now, and we had one of our best years for our regular programs as well as disaster.
Okay. So are there specific businesses that are eligible for the EIDL program, or is it open to everyone? Or how does that work?
Well, it's excuse me. It's open to everyone, including for-profit and nonprofit under EIDL. There are very few restrictions. We don't lend to lending institution. We don't lend to lenders, that kind of thing. There's very few exceptions where you're not eligible. So I encourage everyone to apply for that.
Okay.
The list is of not eligible. We tell you what's not eligible rather than what's eligible.
Okay.
Everybody else is eligible.
Very good. So you mentioned the 7A and 504 programs. And Jordan, we're going to get back to you in just one second. 7A and the 504 programs. So I have a comment here. There's a fee waiver that's been, actually, did you mention that, or can you talk a little bit more about that? How
Sure.
long is it going to be in place?
Sure. Both of those are done on what's called a guaranteed basis. So it's not direct money. It's a lot like a student loan.
Sure.
So it's the government guarantee on a bank loan, and the beneficiary, in this case, is the small business. So they qualify for a loan that they may not qualify for conventionally. Lenders do that, and we charge a fee for that program normally, 2 to 3%, depending on the size of the loan, and that can be pretty hefty. So what we have done going forward this year in FY 22 coming up, which for us starts on October 1st, we have waived the fees for the programs for this year as well. And that's what we used during the recession in 08, and that made our lenders lend more, and we bounced back. And that fee that we charge to both the borrower and we charge some fees to the lender actually pays for the program in most years. So we don't need taxpayer dollars to run those programs, rely on those fees. But we went ahead and subsidized it for this year because of the conditions.
Perfect. Okay. You mentioned the EDGE grants. I know you're excited about it. You've had a few rounds of it now. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the recipients, maybe what you've seen there? You talked about expansion a little bit, and who are the primary applicants that you're seeing coming in, and talk a little bit about the successes there.
One of the really cool things about the EDGE grant program is it's hard to develop a profile of our winners and say this is who's really successful here. We've really had such a wide range of winners, and especially now as we're 3 rounds complete, to look back at kind of the portfolio of what has happened there has been just really, really diverse, which is exciting to see. We've done everything from restaurants. We've had some breweries that have been in. Probably one that sticks out to me from our most recent round is Elite Feet in Middletown. Jason and Joy Hunt. They own the store. It's a specialty running or footwear store. So they'll measure your feet. They have retail there to sell you the shoes that are actually meant to fit your feet. And their proposal was to purchase a trailer and to take their show on the road, pretty literally, and to take the shoes to the place where people are who would be really in demand for their services, and they determined that was race events. So they wanted to be able to go to where those folks were. So, I mean, that was really, to me, the perfect example of what the EDGE grant program is for. It's, hey, we have a business, we're new, and this is going to help us compete with our larger competitors. So
That's great. So I'm sure Jason and Joy appreciate that plug there as well during the economic summit. So great. So access to capital is a big issue, right? So we talk about that a lot, and you have the 7A programs and those various things out there. What are some other areas that you know of that businesses can take advantage of, either through your programs or otherwise? That maybe some partnerships that you have or you're working with or hoping to develop here in the near future?
We are kind of going back to our normal programming. I say normal, whatever that means anymore. But, you know, we really have partnered with some of our local banks to facilitate the access to capital. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an area where people probably overlook it quite a bit just because we don't do a whole lot of direct lending on a normal ongoing basis. But, you know, really a wide range of issues is what we're seeing right now with the small businesses. It's really hard to classify people into everybody has this one specific problem, mm-hmm. which it would be great if that were the case, because that's a really easy problem to solve. It's really easy to connect them to that resource if everybody has the same problem. But what we're seeing right now is everybody has their really unique challenges. So we have a team of regional business managers that we always encourage folks to reach out to for assistance. And, you know, they have a pretty wide network of resources that run the gamut. So, you know, if you're struggling with access to capital, they know the local landscape, they know the local lenders, they're able to connect you with the SBA with their programs. If you're having issues, you know, a regulatory issue, we can't promise that we're going to solve your regulatory issue, but we can definitely connect you with the folks to talk through it and work towards a resolution.
Thank you. So I know that there are resources available to help businesses sort of get started with each of your programs. Can you talk a little bit about the SBA and some of those resources that are out there? Maybe they need help with writing a business plan or something like that. Do you know of things that they can take advantage of at the SBA that they need before they even step into what an SBA program might look like?
Sure, that's a great question. So before you get started, we work with what we call our resource partners. Everybody in the state is kind of our partner if you're a Chamber of Commerce or the state. The reason why we call our resource partners that is because they spend some of our money. So we have a special relationship with them. And those are listed as the Small Business Development Center and the SCORE office, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. Mm-hmm. And they can work with you. By the way, they were started 50-some years ago by a group of DuPont retirees right here in Delaware. Now mm-hmm. they're nationwide, over 50,000 volunteers. Wow. And it started right here. And then last but not least, our women's business centers, which focus on those types of issues and questions when it comes to starting a business. I mean, they take male clients, but they really do have a focus on that audience. And they're in Wilmington, and but they also have representatives in central and southern Delaware.
Yeah, Jordan, same question for you. Are you specifically working with other partners that offer those services to assist with businesses getting into the process and really taking advantage of the services that you offer?
I mean, that's one of the really beautiful things about Delaware being such a small state is we connect with a lot of the same resource partners, SBDC and SCORE. Mm-hmm. Their expertise is top notch. So, you know, helping connect people to them when those are the services they're looking for is really a blessing. Yeah, good. So wanted to focus on the greatest opportunities that are coming about, right? So we talked a little bit about the things that you guys are going to be offering. I really would like to hear more about what do you see as maybe trends that are happening right now as far as businesses that are looking to grow or expand, some things that maybe they should be looking for. What are you seeing in your offices as far as applications coming in? And talk a little bit about those industries, if you will, and then just, if you can, highlight some of those opportunities that are out there.
So, you know, the thing about SBA, we're very flexible and you're not used to hearing that word when it comes to government, flexible. But we're flexible based on demand. So when times are good, we get applications for startup restaurants, for laser tag places, those types, you know, that kind of thing, the recreational, building new bowling alley, the big one down in southern Delaware. When times are a little tough, we tend to see more of the traditional applications, mm-hmm. you know, construction, those types of things, places that we need, businesses that we need to run our lives. And we're going to see more of that. Mm-hmm. We saw it back in 2008. We're going to see more people turning to us, traditional businesses that we've never seen before. We all love to see that manufacturer come to the state and employ 500 people, but they don't walk in the door every day. But we're probably going to see more of that. I see that. The other opportunity I see, true, is that the amount of money that we're spending in order to reinforce our infrastructure is huge, and it's moving forward. Both what's been approved and what's proposed now in Congress. I think there's a huge opportunity for government contracting.
Okay.
And my office has professionals on staff that can help you get through that maze of government contracting, and it's free. You're already paid by the taxpayers. You can hire a high-paid consultant, or you can come to us or one of our partners, and they'll work with you for free. So I see that as a huge opportunity, government contracting moving forward.
Jordan? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have seen that's really interesting is, the relief grants exposed us to a huge segment of folks and really kind of gave us a great data set into looking at what was going on into the state. And as things are progressing and moving forward, it's really hard to pinpoint by industry or even geographic area, because we're finding that people are just in such a different spot, essentially. We also recently ran a loan program called Run DE, and it was working capital loans up to $50,000. And we got applications from all kinds of different industries, which was a little bit surprising, just because I think we expected it to really heavily group into like the restaurants and the hospitality type industries. And we didn't see that. We saw a wide range. Professional services were in. We actually did have, construction companies that were in. Just a huge amount of variation there. And we're seeing that just in those programs and those applications, and we're seeing it anecdotally that, restaurants, for example, there's some restaurants that are telling us we were able to pivot, we were able to adjust our business model, we were able to make those changes, and, we're hanging in and we're doing well. And we have others that just weren't able to do that for one reason or another. It didn't fit with their model. So, those folks are struggling, and it's not easy as saying all the restaurants in Sussex County are doing great and all the restaurants in Newcastle are not. And to see that everybody is just kind of scattered into all kinds of different areas is interesting to see, and we're definitely seeing that in our interaction with the programs.
Great, thank you. So I do offer the audience to ask questions. Please type those in the chat. I do have a few that have come in here from the audience. We appreciate that. So one question here talks about nonprofits. How much are you involved with nonprofits, and what do you see as far as the economic impact that nonprofits have had? Either they've either been impacted by COVID-19 and the pandemic, or how are they supporting the growth and really the economy during the pandemic? Are you seeing anything as far as nonprofits and how they're interacting with your offices?
Well, our office, the nonprofits are restricted to the EIDL program
Okay.
for the recovery.
Okay.
Normally, our 7A504, the Congress has decided not to, when they set up the program, to only have it for for-profit businesses. The idea, of course, is to generate tax dollars, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think that we can't ignore the impact that they have, the number of people that they employ, the people we've heard from that used our EIDL program. By the way, they were eligible for the PPP program, which was unusual and kind of groundbreaking on that program. And they used our lenders to do that. So we've done some major nonprofit loans, large loans to really to supplement with the money that they usually get from donors or from other places. In particular, we had a program called the SVOG, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and some of the theaters are nonprofits, and we were able to help them through a grant program that launched in March, and that program was very successful. And we've been able to save some of the theaters here in Delaware.
Nice, very good. How about the Division of Small Business?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what John is saying, that it's not a segment that we've typically serviced in the past, just because they're really unique, and their revenue stream is very different than a revenue stream of a for-profit business. Sure. And we have just focused on the for-profit segment heavily for the tax reason. And during the pandemic, we did do the DE relief grants. We included nonprofits that were in specific sectors, and most of that come down to the arts and culture, to make sure that just like the for-profit businesses, they were able to keep the lights on and have a fighting chance.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Well, that's our time for this morning. We really thank you both for being here. Thank you, John and Jordan, for being here. John Fleming from the SBA, Small Business Administration, Jordan Schulteis from the Delaware Division of Small Business. Again, thank you both for being here. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're excited to continue our conversations, and our next panel for this morning takes a look at the changes in the workplace and the workspace. And so we thank each of you for being here. Joining us this morning is Tammy Ordway, who's a partner at Fall Casson and serves as the Director of Entrepreneurial Services. Thank you, Tammy, for being here. Ted Werner, he's the CEO of Post-Acute Medical Rehabilitation Hospital of Dover. Thank you, Ted, for being here. And Martha White, she's the Senior Project Manager with a focus on commercial interior renovations for the EDIS Commercial Contracting Company. So thank each of you for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us here for the Central Delaware Economic Summit. So our discussions today are focused on the changing landscape of the workforce and the workplace. And I spoke with each of you last week a little bit and just talked about some of the things that you guys have been doing and some of the remarkable achievements you've seen over the last 18 months and with either your organizations or other organizations that you work with. So we'd like for you to talk a little bit about that changing landscape of the workspace and the workforce. And so Martha, if you don't mind, let's start with you. I know you have a really broad spectrum of a view of this specific issue in your job. So I think you can talk a little bit about not only your workspace, which you do at EDIS, but some of the work that you're working on with some of the professionals out there in the community. I know that you work in a lot of professional settings, so you can talk a little bit about that. So tell us about the workspace. How have you seen those things change over the last 18 months? And then we're going to get into some of the things in the future that you see.
Certainly. Thank you for having me. The workspace, as a person who works on commercial renovations, that's what I do. Our company does out of the ground work, but we also have a niche group that works on office spaces and whatnot. And over the past decade or so, we've been seeing what's been referred to as densification. And the corporations that are here in Delaware that have an international or national presence, and even some of our more local companies have started to create workspaces that are very tight, very mobile, and not very individual. They're just workbenches. You come and you sit down. And we saw this intense effort to maximize rentable space. And then we come right up to this pandemic, and I go, and see what's going to happen now. Sure. And how tight do you really want your people sitting next to your neighbors if your only separation is a monitor? Mm-hmm. Most of those companies that were that dense sent everybody home, and they're still not back. Okay. And so what we're starting to see is people reevaluation. What's the definition of a workspace in a shared office component? And it hasn't happened yet because they're still trying to figure out, but we anticipate that this whole densification business is going to kind of let loose a little bit and settle. Okay. Oddly enough, EDIS did its own renovation, and we did a version of densification and had to give serious consideration to how we placed people. We were considered an essential business, and we kept working through the entire pandemic. Yeah. Obviously, Ted, you're in a medical environment. You have some challenges. You have to be on campus. You have to be in your buildings and providing the services that you provide. How have you seen the workspace change over the last 18 months, and then what are you preparing now?
Thank you again for having me. Tremendous changes, as we've all experienced, and as many can imagine in the healthcare setting, certainly hits very close to home. And I want to first thank all of the healthcare heroes out there in the state for all the tireless efforts that they've done to keep us all safe. And we couldn't get through it without their support. We couldn't get through without the community support of us. So thank you. I could tell you that we have certainly seen challenges that I think we didn't dream of 2 years ago that we would have run into, looking at not only just social distancing, but making sure that we had the resources in a hospital setting that we had to take care of the patients that we're tasked with taking care of, and making sure that those patients are safe as well as our staff, making sure that we had the appropriate resources of PPE, staffing levels that we could take care of, so that we could make a difference and continue our operations in a normal. We had to think of everything that we did, just as many other businesses that have done. How is this going to be impacted by the pandemic? And as we all remember, the information was very fluid very early on, so we had to adapt with that as well in the healthcare setting, working with the Delaware Healthcare Association and as well as our other sister hospitals across the country, as well as other hospitals in healthcare settings here in Delaware. We all worked collaboratively to come up with best practices that what we need to do to make everyone safe and adjust those work environments and adjust the resources, and then being there for our staff. We all went into modes of how are we going to handle now staff that have children and in school settings or in daycares. That certainly impacted our operations, and we're partnering with the state and others in the local community. We all worked together to solve that. So come a long way in a short period of time.
Yeah, excellent. So, and Tammy, obviously you work in a professional, so you're a professional service provider, obviously with an accounting firm with Falkasson, a very large firm. So talk about how the pandemic impacted the services that you provide in the workspace, and then also talk about some of your clients that you've seen out there. I know that we talked about that a little bit last
Sure.
week.
Yeah, and thank you also for asking me to be on
Sure,
the
no,
panel.
thank you.
So it was unique because as a business, we have 3 offices across 2 states, and we were also considered essential just like yourselves. So we were open. Not only were we open and essential, but we were in the middle of tax season. So that is one of our biggest production seasons, and March is one of our biggest production months. So this was, thrust upon us like it was everyone, and I think you could have had 2 different thoughts. One was just to, basically cry, sit in a corner and cry like a lot of us probably felt like doing. And the other one was, we've got to dig deep and we've got to figure this out. And so just as Jordan was saying from the state, businesses that had a model and they pivoted. For us, I believe we pivoted quickly, and a lot of businesses that we saw had success through the pandemic, they were able to pivot, quickly. So, here we were in March, and we shut down effectively in person just so we could give our employees that comfort of knowing that we were sanitizing our workplace appropriately. So we would have cleaning crews come in and sanitize in between. We were encouraging minimal client contact. Luckily, Falkasson, years before the pandemic, had invested in a resource of being able to be remote. We have a very secure portal. We have a remote desktop situation where our staff can log in and continue to work. So we had already implemented that. So that was really good then when we had the situation where we basically had to close down but still operate in March. So our employees went to a virtual setting, and again, it was for their safety, our client safety, and also we had children out of school too, and that's a huge issue within our organization. And so then June 1st, we made the election to bring the employees back. And then that was really looking at work space. Just as Martha had said, we looked at it. And luckily we hadn't condensed before, so luckily we hadn't. So we still had very much social distancing that could be maintained. And for some people, like such as someone who might be expecting, we put them in an office on their own. So we did make some adjustments. And then during this time, it was very important for us to stay focused to our clients because they were going through challenges and they needed somebody sometimes just to answer the phone. And that's what we tried to do because we needed to get them through this gamut of programs that were available for them and get the funding so that they could continue on and hopefully bring their employees back too. So that's how we kind of dove into it, initially.
Yeah, so you work with a lot of professional clients. And
Yes.
Are you finding they're doing the same things? Are they really having to modify? And have you had those conversations with them?
Absolutely.
And what are you seeing there?
Right. So we have clients that are everything from construction, restaurants, personal services themselves, and it was so interesting, and it was one positive thing I try to pull out of it is the fact that I got in front of clients in a different way. Like you would think, okay, you just do their taxes, but they were calling to ask for any kind of help and suggestion, and I think because we had the attitude of digging in and really coming up with a solution, we were able to help them too and share with them, what was working for us. And so we helped them implement, and also a lot of the programs, they had to spend money in a certain way. So it was like, okay, did you think about putting shields? I mean, some people were actually putting up plexiglass shields. Sometimes it was shower curtains because that's all they could get their hands on. And so we were advising them through things that weren't even really accounting related, but we were just trying to provide that value for them in this difficult time.
Excellent. So thank you. Obviously, what I love about this panel is it's very dynamic as far as what you had to do during the pandemic. But I want to focus on some of the things that that you've worked on, you've seen improvements with, and then really the things you're going to continue to incorporate post-pandemic. Things that you've seen that have improved your efficiencies and your effectiveness as organizations that you really would like to see continue even as the pandemic starts to wane off. So, Ted, let's start with you if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, great question. I think one of the takeaways for us that we've really found is really investing in, we always have, but I think more of a focus on our employees and just their overall well-being and getting through the pandemic and the resources. And one of the things that I was really appreciative that we had was the ability to work with institutions such as Del Tech and other schools where that we have the blessing of having a pipeline of students that come through for clinical rotations that are able to add direct support and help to our overworked staff as it is with the pandemic, and then being able to have that support and for them to be able to see the life and situation of what's going on currently with the pandemic. It really gives them a taste of what to expect and for them to be able to see that. So I think moving forward, I think that's fantastic to be able to keep students here in Delaware and be able to give them opportunities and for them to be able to see the real world environment. I think that'll help position a lot of healthcare facilities in the future, and I fully think that that's a fantastic idea.
Martha, same question for you. What have you seen that's really improved your efficiencies and effectiveness over the last few months that you really have embraced as an organization that are going to continue post-pandemic?
I'd offer that technology, most of us who are in the office setting are familiar with a lot of the technological benefits, what comes with the various softwares, but the superintendent and the tradesmen in the field frequently aren't asked to attend Zoom meetings, or certainly before all this. And we had to very quickly pivot to project meetings that were not on site. Mm-hmm. And the superintendent is setting up and really embracing and jumping into the benefits of Zoom and Teams and other realities that were forced upon us as an industry. We were doing a project at the Del Tech campus for the entire project in Wilmington during the pandemic, rather. Those guys embraced it. They jumped on it and figured out how to keep the job moving while everybody on the job site working is either in like a pod pair or 6 feet apart. I think those meeting opportunities are not going to slow down. I think the remote meeting keeps people from spending time in their vehicle, but you can still spend time on the site. You can get a FaceTime out and take a tour. The inspection agencies are visiting remotely. They're not, or have just now begun to visit in site when it's time for inspections, but they were doing it on FaceTime. Mm-hmm. So I think we're finding that construction is being forced even further into a technological world that was coming along with building information modeling and Revit and other softwares of the design component, and now the construction world is really having to embrace it.
Yeah, are you finding that's better, or is it more of a challenge, or is there something that you are excited about that's going to continue to improve what you're doing?
Well, I always love going to the job site.
Okay.
I've been doing it for 25 years. Sure. You learn a lot. You kind of get to touch and feel, and then you can explain it to your clients if they're misinterpreting something or just don't get it. So it's nice to have that opportunity to visit the site. On the other side of that coin, though, is the benefit of, well, I'm still in the office. I could still churn this out. I don't have to find a parking spot, pack up my job bag and get out on the site with the superintendent. So there's pluses and minuses to how we're evolving during this pandemic.
Yeah. How about you, Tammy? I know that we talked a little bit about some of the things that you've seen over the last 18 months improving efficiencies, and not only with your company, with other companies as well.
Right.
Talk about some of those things and some things you think you might keep after all this is said and done.
Well, definitely staying engaged was a challenge at first. And so we did go with Microsoft Teams, because originally when we were all, trying these meetings, Zoom was out there, but there was some controversy around it being secure. So we had went with Microsoft Teams, and you're right, nothing replaces, kind of like you said on that job site. Same thing with OJT. You need this crucial training, and sometimes it's easy just to say, hey, come on down to my office and I'll show you this screen and we'll get through it. And you have to learn that you can't abandon that you still have to offer that. So we did convert to Teams, and we still to this day have our staff meetings on Teams. And one of the benefits of it now is that we can have all three of our offices on that meeting. So now we've brought in more interaction, more involvement. So that is a positive thing that's come from that. And so we tried to take what was successful for us with that, and also arming your employees at home who are already stressed out as is. I mean, their mental health during this time was a huge consideration, because you're asking them to attend a meeting and they're worried about the 2 dogs and 3 kids in the background. Yeah. And I could tell you how many times on a meeting you'd see a kid doing this, and you have to embrace that. And that was great that they were still able to engage with that platform. So that's certainly going to stay. And then we encourage clients to look at that too and say, hey, this is working for us. How can you also do it in your industry? And that is really hard in some industries. I mean, what are you going to do in a restaurant industry? That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Construction industry. So with some, it certainly doesn't apply, but we tried to help share what was working for us.
So switching gears to workforce and some of the hiring, I know, Ted, you mentioned some of the pipeline that you're trying to keep full here, and obviously a big challenge in the medical world. Talk about the dynamics of hiring someone during the pandemic. Talk about what they're looking for as far as an employer. So, obviously the landscape has changed quite a bit over the last 18 months. So employees are looking for employers to provide certain things. Talk about some of those things. Are they looking for more flexibility? Are they looking for specifics in the workspace as far as what the footprint might look like, or what their protections are? Talk about that, and how have you seen that dynamic change?
Sure, yeah, it certainly has, and flexibility is key, especially in clinical positions. There's certainly, we all have responsibilities at home. We all have things that we need to do, and being flexible and allowing our staff to realize that, having positions that may cover on a per diem basis or weekend coverage, really being creative and making sure that we're meeting the needs of potential employees. It's also, what are those resources we talked about earlier? What are those barriers or challenges that would prevent you from being able to take a professional position that could make a difference in our community? Is that something that we as an institution can help with other partners in, such as childcare, such as transportation? Are those things that we can do to help make that easier for you to be able to succeed in the roles? So that piece certainly has been front and center, and I think it remains and it will be in the future for a lot of employers, especially in the healthcare industry where, as we've talked about, a lot of healthcare staff have been working hard. So it's about taking care of them and making sure that we have all the resources for them that they need and all the technology that they need. As a licensed hospital, it's really important for us to make sure that we work with our other hospitals in the state.
Yeah, are you finding that you have to add a level of security to them to encourage them to come in and work? I mean, obviously, coming to a place of employment comes with its own set of concerns. During this time, are you finding that you have to build in that extra encouragement or security for them to really want to come to work and want to do those things? Having a hard time finding employees to come in, some of that is because they're concerned, right? They're worried about coming back to work because of the dynamics there. Martha, are you finding those that's a challenge?
EDIS took a really proactive approach, and we had daily monitoring that we all had to check in with 7 days a week.
Sure.
During as soon as possible after we went home for a brief period in March, and that didn't stop until probably June of this year. So I think part of that helped show an engagement that the company wanted people to be paying attention to their own health and be confident in saying, you know, oh, there's a little something off here. We didn't encourage a full office participation until this past summer. And we actually had quite a few people come back. I think they really enjoy the camaraderie and OJT, that's a new acronym for me, that we might start using, but we also want to introduce them to the culture. You know, 110-year-old, 113-year-old company, and we're all about family. Our company is a family. Our clients become our family members, and we were happy to have them back. And it was voluntary, and actually prior to July when we asked, like asking accounting people to move, in the bean, you know, they have to do the pay period and scanners and printers and all that goodness. We didn't encourage them until, you know, after 4th of July, because the rest of us didn't have to come with like 8 printers and a fax. So the comeback wasn't as difficult as maybe it could have been.
Okay, so we're going to get to culture in just a second. I know that's been a big topic that we've I know I've talked about with a variety of individuals over the last few months. But Tammy, talk about some of the things that you're seeing as far as workforce and hiring, and not only with your company but others as well.
Right. So I mean, during this time, I don't think there's any client that says, "Yeah, I'm fully, you know, staffed and I'm happy." So. I think right now we're trying to, within our own organization and helping clients with efficiency, you know, how can they do more with less? And, you know, sometimes it's just not an option. So just working through that. And then on the flip side, interviewing, when you do have candidates that are coming in and interviewing, because we haven't stopped hiring during this whole time. And it's really sharing with them now more than ever how we take care of our employees. So before, we might have talked about how we like to relieve stress, you know, during tax season. And now it's giving them the comfort of knowing that we take their safety very seriously, because the employee safety also extends to their families, elderly parents, and the community. And so we followed very strict guidelines that came down by the governor or CDC, and we followed them. You know, we still have social distancing maintained, you know, within our office. You know, take all that seriously. And so now that's the messaging that is now shared with any candidate that we interview, is that we take your safety very seriously, because we know it extends, you know, to your family. And so that messaging was always there. It's just been a little bit, you know, presented a little bit differently now.
I want to talk about culture. So Martha, you mentioned it, and I know that's a big issue, right? With a lot of remote environments that are out there right now, there's a concern that you might lose that culture. And I know a lot of professional development happens at the water cooler, right? So we talk, we have these informal conversations that help businesses grow. So talk about culture and how you're faced with that issue. And not only, again, you have professional clients that are facing these same things. What are the things you've seen?
Initially, we tried to do Zoom happy hours or team happy hours, and that was engaging while it was novel. And it's kind of petered off. Then we kept trying to say, when can we do something outside? And I think our first try for outside, it was a massive storm. So, you know, we didn't move it inside.
Right, its own set of challenges, right? Yeah.
So we're always looking for that way to bring in the culture. So the new hires, because we've also had new hires, how do you get to meet us? How do you get to know who to go to ask for the permit? Who can help you with the permits in the various parts, or you know, get some feedback on what you think about a subcontractor. And then also in a parallel universe, a lot of our clients, the legal community, they chose not to have summer associates. How do those people bring in the legal community? Talk about OJT. You know, how are you going to get to know how to work in a court and settings that are even more foreign? So I think all of us struggle with how to get those introductions and those conversations moving with the new employees and continuing with the old. And there's been a big push from our leadership group. I sit on the leadership group to just take that extra moment to reach out talk to people, engage them in something that's not work-related. It's just, oh, did you see that funny GIF, or did you see that YouTube video, or some other thing that is happening out there, to make sure that they recognize that you're not just joining a job, you're joining a company of people that enjoy each other's company and have each other's backs.
Yeah. So at post-acute, I imagine you guys are facing some of the same things. You are on your campus and your buildings and providing services, so you might have a little bit of a different take on it. So what are you seeing as far as cultural changes? How do you communicate what the culture is within PAM, if you will, and talk about some of the challenges there.
Well, certainly culture is important, and we would not have been able to be as successful as we have if not the culture that we've built. And we kind of jokingly refer to each other as a family, because it really is, that's the feel that we have in our building, and that's how we take care of each other. None of us expected to be on a war footing, to be honest with you, in the healthcare industry just a short couple years ago, but that's what we found ourselves on. We found ourselves really in the trenches, and it's next man up. It's stepping up and making sure that we are taking care of each other. And that builds camaraderie, that builds strength and resilience, and I've seen it firsthand in my building as well as many other buildings and other hospitals in our state. So that certainly helps define culture, but it's those little things that we refer to. Can we do things to keep it lighthearted? It's a very heavy time, so can we have fun as a team? Can we have some crazy pizza parties in between taking care of our patients? Can we do things that to help our staff? Our corporate office executive leadership team helped with all sorts of things that we could do to help our staff, financial reimbursements, things of that nature, to make it a little bit easier for them when they're spending so much time in the hospital, and it was round the clock. So that culture shifted, but it shifted in a positive way, and I think it makes us stronger coming out of it.
Sure, good. So it sounds like we're almost encouraging the funny joke emails, where before it was saying, hey, that's company business, we can't do that, but now it's sort of shifted a little bit, maybe, right? So Tammy, same question for you. Culture is important, I know, to your company and what you do there. Talk about that. How have you seen that change, or what are you doing to improve that?
Right. And, we questioned ourselves and said, how are we going to maintain a culture that we've worked so hard to build, like a positive culture? How are we going to maintain it during this? We didn't want to abandon, such a good precedent we already set. So we really challenged ourselves, and the pandemic helped shock us out of archaic thoughts and to say, we're going to do it just like how we've always done it. So we had to get creative, which sometimes for accountants are a little bit challenging. So we had to get creative. So before, the pandemic, we would bring puppies in during tax season from a local shelter, and we would have happy hours, and we would be gathering often. And instead, we didn't want to lose that. We still wanted to bring that relief from that stress, especially that stress that tax season can bring, and then throw a pandemic on top of it. So we had to get creative. So we would bring in a food truck, and our after tax season party was a block party outside instead. We had an ice cream truck pull up in our parking lot one time. So we had to definitely think outside the box of creative ideas that still embraced that culture of togetherness when you couldn't celebrate that physical togetherness, but how could we still celebrate it? And we also did too have the virtual happy hours, but again, that seemed to have some hype in the beginning and kind of lost its luster. Yeah. So, you constantly had to think of new ways, and as a result, that is something we've still maintained. So here we are closing our second tax season during this pandemic, and we're like, well, we usually have an indoor tax season party. What are we going to do different? And instead, we rented out a nonprofit that was outside and had it out on the beach. So I think a lot of that is still going to be maintained, through this. But it's just like anything else. You have to work at it. It doesn't come naturally, and you have to work at it. And so I think companies definitely have to put it first of mind all the time.
So that actually lent itself perfectly to one of the questions that came out, but keeping employees motivated. So that motivation to want to be there, to want to perform, want to produce, and to really be part of, like you said, the family or the family that you've created there. Are you working on any strategies for motivation and some of those things? How about you, Martha?
I got the hardest question.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I think a lot of the peers that I work with are motivated to accomplish their projects on time, as close on time as possible right now, because some of the lead times are getting thrown all kinds of out of whack. I think leadership continues to just give everybody the support that they need to satisfy all of our drives to be successful and successful for our clients. And so it's very interesting. How do you motivate that? Because I think we're already driven to motivate and not, we don't want to fail this little
Sure.
community that we're
Yep.
in. So I think the more is just recognizing people need a breather every now and then, or if they're going to take a day off, they're going to take a day off, whereas before maybe it's like, we got this job.
Right.
So maybe there's just a little bit more leeway that helps with this motivation. And when I mean job, I mean project.
Sure,
Like you have
yeah,
this
and
project.
it is a huge challenge, right? Keeping that, when you're remote and you're trying to make sure that things are moving forward and keep them motivated, it's a huge challenge when you're not there to engage and really keep that conversation flowing. How about motivation for post-acute? I know you talked a little bit about some of that. What do you think is the next step for you as far as keeping employees engaged?
Well, I could tell you certainly from our standpoint, the motivation, it's seeing the patients that we have in the state that come to us and how they recover in the short time that we have, and transitioning those patients home is a tremendous motivator for our staff. We've all entered healthcare because we feel that we can make a difference for our community, and that is a huge motivator. And having the feedback from patients, we love to get notes, we love to get comments. We get phone calls from patients all the time and say, you made a difference in either my life or in my father's life or whoever it might be, or mother's. It really, to us, that's a huge motivator, and we share those with our staff. We make sure we celebrate those successes, those wins, because that is a life that we're changing, and that is a family that we're hoping to improve. So that's a huge motivator. But not only that, it's the things that we can do to invest in our employees, whether it be through increased tuition reimbursement, whether it be through opportunities for leadership development and growth. Those are the things that will help the mind, spirit, and soul, so to speak, of our employees. And that's what I'm committed to doing. And I think that will help us move forward.
Outstanding. So, Tammy, we have a specific question for you that came in. I know you talked about team meetings and Zoom meetings and things of that nature for your team. How are you handling that with clients? Are you encouraging one-on-one interactions, or are you really looking forward to those Zoom meetings and those types of interactions? And then as the follow-up, do you have a preferred technology that you're using? And as far as engaging clients specifically, what do you see there?
So the Microsoft Teams has been very successful, and it has allowed us to offer that to the client. So certainly at the beginning, the messaging was, we want to meet this, this way. And then the messaging changed to, you're welcome to come in, but, we still need to uphold our security measures. So clients were very responsive to Teams, and in our particular application, it was very easy. They weren't necessary to have the same program. You could send them a link to the meeting. It was very user-friendly for us. We did have some training around that platform, and that has been extremely successful. We have a couple remote employees, again, because we did invest in that resource. Even before the pandemic, we have employees that work for us, and they said, I'm going to move, I want to take care of my elderly parent. How can we still be successful with this? And again, Teams has allowed us to, with a simple click of a microphone, you can be on a call with them. So that's been extremely successful with both clients and employees.
Are you finding the same thing, the two platforms that she mentioned, or do you have other technology that you're using? Martha, I see you shaking your head.
We've also used GoToMeeting. We find that some of our BIM, Building Information Modeling, somehow they can make it live when they're on GoTo more easily than Zoom or Microsoft. So so a lot of us prefer Zoom. Some of our staff prefer Microsoft, and frankly, I just click accept, or I send what I'm more comfortable with.
Okay.
And if our clients in particular say we really like to work on Teams, let's go. We'll go on Teams. So. And we are meeting primarily with our clients remotely.
I know in the medical field you have embraced some technology. It's been really a game changer in some cases, right? So you talk a little bit about what you're doing at post-acute.
Sure, absolutely. We invest in technology all the time. It's just like we kind of joke about how we have new iPhones almost every year. We have new technology that comes through every year that we're happy to introduce in the community. Sometimes it's that no one in our state has, whether it be to help with Parkinson's patients or whether it be for being able to ambulate and walk and being able to have that security for patients that are recovering from a stroke or a hip fracture. All of those types of technologies that we have, that we implement, we have the opportunity to vet those and see those in real world action, and then being able to introduce those to our clinical teams and have our physicians monitor those progress and how they're doing with the patients. And it's really satisfying seeing that, and just the rewarding ability for patients to see the gains that they've made in a short period of time. That technology assists, but it's that human element coupled with the technology is what makes the difference.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So I'm interested to know what you're most excited about in each of your organizations, not only from the perspective of the things we've already talked about, but anything else that you're really excited about coming up. I know, a lot of changes have happened over the last 18 months, so each of you have faced all those head on, and obviously your businesses are still flourishing and moving forward. So talk a little bit about, Martha, if you don't mind, if I start with you, what are you most excited about as far as the growth of your company and where you're going?
I'd offer that we're just excited that it hasn't slowed down.
Okay.
That there's projects to look forward to working on, that there's projects ahead, and the community's going to figure out how to make them work safely and make them work with some of the pandemic-driven conditions in the supply chain. But generally, we're just kind of happy to have made it through and feel really confident about ourselves as a company and about our community. Our community in Delaware is feeling pretty strong. Good. Do you find that there are specific requests coming in? I mean, you're a construction company, but you work on some design and interior and whatnot. Do you find some specific requests that are coming in? Well, I think what's happening is some of our interior clients are reevaluating their space. Even though I made light of densification in a 6 by 3 foot space, some of our other clients have very luxurious space that they're reevaluating is how can we make better use of it. And how can we get natural light in from outside? So there's a lot of things coming with glass front offices where before you could close the door maybe and be concealed. That seems to be going the way of the highway, and you can tell when somebody's on a phone, you're not interrupting them. You might be able to tell if they're on a Zoom or if they're having a patient call or whatnot. So there's some things that are coming along, and the technology that's going to come with it. Because now everybody's getting really large screen TVs in their rooms, and they're looking to get their wiring all updated in their server rooms, or they're going onto the cloud so they don't need a server room. So that it can be very client specific. Okay. So. Excellent. So same question, Tammy. What are you most excited about? What do you think is coming up? What are the things that you've done that you've really embraced and that you're going to continue to use, and what opportunities are there?
Yeah, so during that time, like I was saying before, we got in front of our clients in a different way, and that was really exciting. At the time, it was tough. We were still in tax season, and we had all these programs to help them get through, to get that essential funding, and we're still helping them through it. And that is exciting because it's more of that consultative nature. It's not just the compliance all the time of doing a tax return or doing an audit. We're in front of a client in an expanded way, and that's exciting for us to have that consultative nature. And then also during this time, we have an amazing team. We've been very successful with retention of our staff, and I think a lot of that is because during that time, we incentivize them, and we also ask the employees, what is it that you need? So it was even more of an increased flexible work schedule, being able to work remote. Maybe it wasn't working those core hours of 9 to 4, but maybe we had some employees that were logging on at 5 a.m. because they really needed to be with their family when school started, and maybe then they'd log back on after dinner having it with their family. So we're excited too of the fact that we have, I think, enhanced our relationship with our employees and showed them that during this time, it's all about give and take. And sometimes you give to your organization and you work that 50-hour, 55-hour work week if you need to, and then there's other times you need to take, and that's okay, because it definitely showed us that we were truly all in it together, and I'm really excited for that and embracing that and moving forward with
Good.
it.
So same question, Ted, as we're wrapping up here, what are the things that you see are opportunities that are coming up that you think is really going to enhance not only your services, but really to the community at large?
Yeah, I think there's two main areas that I'm really excited the most. There's a lot, but the two biggest ones that stand out to me is the collaboration that working with the healthcare continuum. Through the pandemic, and even we were going there as a healthcare industry, it's really just working together well with each other, getting the technology and information from each other, working through those challenges, and having those institutions really fire on all cylinders collaboratively. That's really exciting to me, and be able to take it to the next level of healthcare for our citizens. The other part for us as an organization, we're expanding into Delaware. We've got a site that we're working on in Georgetown right now, and just to be able to provide the resources that we do and the outcomes that we do to our sister and brothers down in Sussex County is exciting for us. And those are things that I think that provides opportunities for folks, provides jobs in that area, and as well as continued professional development. So all wonderful things that I'm very excited to be able to do.
Excellent. So we thank each of you for being here, Tammy, Martha, and Ted. It really was a great conversation. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're excited to continue our conversations this morning. Earlier, we heard from some larger companies that have obviously been working through this pandemic, and so now we're excited to have our next panel, which is a group of smaller businesses, but have been very active during the pandemic, and they're going to offer a slightly different insight, a different perspective on not only what they've done over the last 18 months, but really try to focus on some of the things that they've embraced and how they've improved and actually grown during the pandemic. So it's exciting to hear this, hear from each of our panelists. So joining us, we have Rose and Angie Robles. They are owners and operators of My Sister's Fault, which is a bakery.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, we have Mike Rusmanson. He's here with the founder and partner of the Painted Stave Distillery. Thank you, Mike, for being here. And George Dobbins is joining us from CrossFit Dover. So thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you each for being here. This is a lot of fun. I had a chance to talk with each of them last week and really go over some of the dynamic things that they've done throughout the 18 months. So I'm excited for all of you to hear about this. The general theme of this conference is really the changing landscape and of workforce and the workplace. And each of you had to deal with specific issues during this time. And I'm excited to hear from the sisters today because they really were getting started at the early part of all of this and transitioned into a full-time company. So we're going to hear more about that. And obviously with the distillery and all of the functions that you had going on, you had some exciting things that you had to work on. And then CrossFit Dover, having to have everybody on campus and right there in your business to really work with them. You've had to have a few transitional moments. So I really want to hear more about that. So why don't we just start with you guys talking a little bit about that, what you were working on when all of this happened and what you've transitioned through, and briefly touch on that pandemic period, and then we're going to get into how you've grown and some of the things that you've done. George, you're nodding your head, so we'll start with you if you don't mind. So how did CrossFit Dover, what happened when all this started, and how did you transition through?
Well, if you remember, this started during the shutdown or with the shutdown. So quickly, myself and my staff, we subdivided our current membership base amongst the staff because within our community, there's very much that, a close-knit interaction. So just by subdividing our membership base amongst our coaching team, we were able to provide just some of those personal contacts on a daily basis. During that time, we've also rented out our equipment. Therefore, we were able to transition to exercise at home.
Yeah, so that business model really shifted a lot during that time because, again, you had to have people there in order to make money, but you really were able to use technology, right?
Yep.
And capitalize on some of those things and then start to change your mindset about how people were going to engage with the services that you provided. So, Mike, I know you did some of the same things. You had some similar challenges with the distillery. Can you talk about those things and how you were able to shift gears and really continue those services that you provide?
Sure. So I think one of the first things is that we drive a lot of our revenue from the folks that are coming and visiting us. We had a few different revenue streams. What we saw almost immediately is our largest revenue stream essentially disappear when we weren't having people in the building anymore. And at the same time, however, we were presented with an opportunity, which was the demand for hand sanitizer in the market. And small distilleries were uniquely positioned to be able to sort of jump in and do that. So what went from an immediate sort of panic of how do we reach customers who we can't have in our spot anymore, to how do we actually create an entirely new product and roll that out in an effective way was I think, challenge number one. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? We figured out in a matter of a week or so how you were going to go about doing that, because the idea of shutting down and getting rid of our staff was really something we didn't want to have to face. And then it was transitioning into, after that helped us level through, it was transitioning into how do we have entirely different relationships with our customers, moving from everything being driven by customers coming and visiting our physical location to how do we provide something for them at home? How do we send events and experiences in bags that they can pick up and take home, and still keep that kind of engagement that we've been cultivating over the last number of years? And that was it was a challenge. It involved new technology. It involved a different way of thinking about what we offered. But in the end, it ended up being very successful for us.
Yeah, excellent. So Rose and Angie, thank you for being here. So you were a very unique story as it relates to the pandemic and when you got started. This was a part-time business, right?
Yep.
And then you were transitioning to a full-time business almost as it began, right? So you kind of had to pivot and then pivot, right? So it was a multiple pivots in this. So talk about that and talk about some of those challenges. Talk about what you do and some of the successes you've had.
So before the pandemic, thank you for having us first. Before the pandemic, we both operated the bakery as a part-time, and I kept my full-time. And December 2018, not December 2018, I put my resignation. And then January comes, I'm all excited, bakery is about to run full-time, we're about to hire more employees, and next thing you know, pandemic hit.
So you had a full-time job. You were
for 2
fully
years.
engaged with that. You were doing this part-time, and then you decided, hey, I'm going to go full-time with this business.
Yeah.
And my sister and I are going to jump in, and that's why it's called My Sister's Fault, I think, right? Is there a story there? There is a little bit of a story there. So.
Well, you're going to see it through the interview that we always blame each other.
So I will say that they do everything together. Let me just add that we are socially distanced up here, which is why we're not wearing our masks. But they're sitting at the same table because they're always together. And
they live together.
They live together. They work together. So talk about what that looked like initially. I mean, obviously a scary moment.
Yeah.
Angie was always like over controlling on all the decisions, and I have seen her how she have changed into being more faithful and being more open-minded about she cannot have control of everything.
Okay.
And that was one.
Yeah, it was a step of faith.
That moment in my life that I have to say, okay, it's time to
step back and see how this is gonna work. We're gonna put our effort into do everything that is on our hands. To make sure that we will continue to be successful, but at the end, all the challenges, it was always like, how are we gonna overcome this? And she noticed, she ended up realizing, okay, everything is not on my power.
Okay.
And things just...
And it took a whole team for us to continue to be successful and for ourselves to grow in the middle of a pandemic. Okay. It wasn't my job, it wasn't my sister, it was a whole team effort.
Yeah, excellent. So, and you provide baked goods. You're a bakery, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you do. And obviously, with the pandemic, it has its own set of challenges just in that industry in and of itself. But obviously, transitioning to full time, that was another issue. Go ahead.
Yeah. We do baked goods, breakfast, sandwiches, and empanadas.
Okay.
Her side of the business is the sweet side, and my side of the business is savory and everything else.
Very good, very good. So George, let's go back to you. So talk about you talked about pivoting, renting out equipment. providing some services, using technology, sort of highlight some of those things. What really we want to get into during this conversation is, what are the things you're going to keep? So you've done some things now that are interesting, that have helped you kind of keep going. But what are the things that you've incorporated that now you think you're going to just keep as you go beyond the pandemic?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we adopted a exercise at home. So we have now a at-home exercise track, which our members can essentially follow in the convenience of their own house. So that is something that we have kept during this time, especially as we transition back into our four walls. During the time when we transitioned back into the gym, we've actually reduced our class times. So that was an attempt to, create some time and some space for our members to clean down all of their equipment, for the staff to come in and to fog the workstations. So we have actually kept that protocol in, and we continue to keep a reduced class so that we can provide that the same level of hygiene and cleanliness. That actually allowed us to incorporate another class during the day as well, and we decided that we were going to keep that. Although exercise at home, when we transition to via Zoom and being able to handle that online, that's a challenge in itself. So kudos to those that are still doing that. We do offer at-home training, but it's not in the same condition as via Zoom. But it's, hey, this is your workout at home, and then shoot over your results to your coach. Okay. So that's how we've currently transferred. So right now, being able to keep a reduced class time to maintain some of the same cleanliness and hygiene, being able to adapt another class into our class time, and that's some of the bigger points that we have been able to adjust and keep within this time.
Yeah, excellent. So obviously you have to build confidence that they can come and enjoy your services, enjoy what you do, and have some confidence that they're going to be safe in doing so. So kudos to you for embracing that and really trying to step up the game there. Mike, you face the same things, right? So you had to build that confidence in what you're going to have at the distillery. You want to invite people back. So you've incorporated some things that you can do so they're not always contained inside the building, but there's some other things as well. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the first big, and from an investment standpoint, and we weren't unique in this, in that a lot of bars and restaurants and other folks had to figure out very quickly, how do you provide to-go service for people? And that meant online ordering and curbside pickup and things. And there is there's a physical technology investment that we needed to make to be able to provide that type of service, new website, online ordering, all that kind of great stuff. Hand sanitizer bought us time while we invested in those things. And then as we've moved to now having customers back on premise, first only in our outdoor space and now throughout our facility, we've tried to minimize the customer interactions so we can maintain social distancing. That involved even more technology. iPads to put in orders, the printers and separating out bar staff, so that there was a significant and ongoing investment. But those are all things that we kind of knew that we wanted to do. There were things that moved us in the direction where we wanted to be, and it's technology that we're going to continue to implement, and processes and procedures amongst our staff that we're going to continue to implement, because ultimately, in the end, we feel it improves the customer experience, and it's where we wanted to get to. We kind of got forced to get there, though.
Yeah, so the pandemic forced your hand almost in doing some of those things. So Angie and Rose, I'm gonna come back to you. So you had some tremendous growth over during this time, right? But you were early phase startup and all of this. So you were able to grow, but you also had to implement some things that would change the way you did business a little bit, right? And so talk about that. I know you incorporated some line organization, some things that you did interior wise.
Yeah, before the pandemic, we had about 18 seats at the bakery. It's a very small space, so already 18 was crowded or were packed. And then after the pandemic, we knew people enjoy coming in and dining in with strangers in the same table and, having conversations. That's what creates the community. And we were not looking forward to move fully online ordering. And also, one of the things that people love about the bakery is walking in and seeing the pastry case, seeing all these cakes and getting to choose online. Then we move over to online. People now have to choose their cakes online, and it works. We thought that was the beauty of our bakery. It still works. Cakes still selling. Now we're posting on Facebook, and you can get this cake online and posting pictures, so we can continue to be attractive for the customers. The first week, we moved completely online. We thought, okay, we're gonna receive our online orders. We're gonna write down a ticket, just like the person was, just like if the person was in here, right? But we didn't realize that online you can receive 70 orders at once. So we were not prepared, but we definitely, we found the ways. That the beauty about the challenges and the things that are happening is that you always find a way if you really want to succeed.
You're paying attention.
Yeah, and you're paying attention to the needs. So we didn't know. I didn't know about getting how easy it was to get a printer and just connect it to my iPad and. Sure. So we had a line of books waiting at 7 in the morning when the orders start coming through. We have a line of tickets. So we have all the girls writing a lot of different tickets, just like if the customers were walking in. And then the challenge is nobody's allowed inside, so taking all these orders outside. So we have lines of cars down the street blocking all their businesses. So it was definitely a challenge, and
but you were able to transition during that period, right?
Yeah,
to modify and really get that to be more efficient as you're able to grow.
At the beginning, I mean, I'm talking about the first 2 weeks. It was definitely a challenge, and I'm pretty sure it was a challenge for everyone. But we learned. We just learned how to.
We didn't make invest.
We invested in
technology
printers, in technology. We hired more employees. We changed the layout of the bakery. Now we have removed all of our tables, and eventually when people were allowed in, we changed the layout in a way that you can just walk in and walk out, like in a curved side pickup inside, and you have a grab and go tables. I mean, we came up with every idea that you can possibly.
A lot of strategies to make sure this thing kept going forward.
And for the customer to feel safe, because a lot of customers will not, probably
feel comfortable in that tight
in
space.
the tight space. I would feel more comfortable probably in a bigger restaurant where they have more space. But we find a way to make signage in the floor to make sure that we control the flow of people. We have your phone number. We'll call you when your order is ready. I mean, we came up with tons of ideas. I will not stop talking.
Good. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Talk about some of your growth as far as hiring and whatnot. George, I'd like to transition to you just for a second. So we did have a question come in and talk about the timing. So obviously with the pandemic, when it came in, it impacted gyms very, very hard, right? So you had a big issue. So talk about the timing of how you were able to transition from being on the ground and having people in your facilities to going fully online. How quickly were you able to do that? What plan did you put together? How did your team rally around that idea?
Yeah, so within our business, we talk about the culture, and the culture of our community is very engaging and interactive. So when we got the notice that we are coming into the shutdown period, the opportunity allowed us to pretty much divide and conquer. So just being able to divide our membership base within the smaller subdivisions to allow, hey, are you exercising today? Are you able to get up and move? How's your mental health, right? And being able to do that during that period, during that shutdown, and then carving out time during the week where we can have, say, a happy hour, right? Or just a night of games, bingo. We had a pretty fun game. It was, hey, first person on the screen to bring a roll of toilet paper, wins a prize, right? And we would send them a gift card. So just being able to, bring people within the community, such as chefs, and we had a whiskey expert come on and just talk about different whiskeys, and just being able to subdivide our community with coaches and people within our staff to just give the same the same interaction and community that they would get inside the gym. And during that time, yes, we're a gym, so physical health is something that we value. But during that time, we found that even mental health was that much more important.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of the additional services that you offered during the time. That was more of a full body, almost mental, physical, everything was really built into what you were doing there. Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit about that? You just mentioned some of it. So, I think you mentioned financial services and things like that. So you were really getting into the full spectrum of what health looks like mentally, physically, and whatnot. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we talk about stress management and understanding that, with a busy schedule, stress does occur, right? So being able to have subject matter experts come in and talk about planning, having subject experts come in and discuss financial discipline. Mm-hmm. So we were able to recruit folks within the community to shed some light on some of these points. And what we found, it kind of took the focus off of what was currently happening, right? And just finding ways to reduce some of the stress that was currently happening and occurring.
Mm-hmm. Good. So, Mike, I want to switch to you. You obviously went through the same things. You had to quickly transition. It seems like a huge undertaking to go from the distillery to making hand sanitizer and those types of things. How quickly were you able to pivot into those kinds of services and those products?
The hand sanitizer piece was a unique challenge. We were actually pretty fortunate in that we had some of the licensing things in place from a previous kind of idea we'd had, but there was a gap there where we were waiting for permission because it's not something that our business would typically be legally able to do. And so we had to wait for guidance that came from the TTB, which is those who oversee distilleries, as well as the FDA, to understand what we could and could not legally do. And then it was, when that was clear, when exactly what we were going to be given the flexibility to do, for us, the next big challenge was really the first 3 months of the year are the slowest time in our business. And that's a hard cash position to be in from a small business, to be coming what is into one of your busiest times, and now need to make an investment to transition into an entirely new line of products. So we needed to go to our lending partner, Dover Federal, to talk about what we needed in order to buy all of the materials, the supplies. From a manufacturing perspective, that was the toughest thing, is supply chain issues that we were hit with almost immediately. Fortunately, we were able to actually make that transition pretty quickly and do it in such a way as we could offer a product to the community half the price of what others were selling it for, and keep all of our staff employed, keep our bills paid. Technically, it was a sort of a fun challenge. Mm-hmm. You'd hate to think of it as a fun time, but it was a problem-solving piece that brought our team together to really totally change what we were doing.
So I think the big question for me is, so at what point are we drinking hand sanitizer from the distillery? Is that what we're drinking, or no? So
no.
Is it completely different?
Oh, it's a totally different.
You're a chemist for background, is that right, or no? Or is
I play one at home.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. So yeah. We're not drinking hand sanitizer.
And fortunately for us, we're long out of that piece of the business. You look at something like that as a short-term thing that you're able to step up and do for your community, not as a long-term piece. And the big players in that, Gojo, Johnson & Johnson, they were actually great for the small guys like us, because they were very clear. They're like, hey, look, you got 3 months. Don't get stuck with this stuff, because we're going to beat you to the market.
Oh, right.
We're going to undercut you in every possible way. Don't get stuck.
Right.
And so for us, we went into it, I think, eyes wide open, and ended up utilizing it as an opportunity to keep everything moving forward.
Yeah, good. So, George, we did get a question from Chaz, who wants to know a little bit more about the Performing Fathers and Own Your Day. Is that a specific program that you have? So talk to us about that and go into some of those details.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So during the pandemic, realizing that our coaching became remote, we were no longer in a brick and mortar space. That allowed me to create other opportunities to continue remote coaching. So when it comes to my Own Your Day coaching, it is essentially done online, remotely. So within that, it's specifically, when you think of Own Your Day, it's not how to get your perfect day, but it's how to get what you want from your day. So I work with folks, especially men, fathers, to establish what that is and to be able to excel in that area. From there became an extension. Performing Fathers is again an online remote opportunity for us to be able to just have community with other men. Right? We spoke about some of the mental health that we saw during the pandemic, and being able to explore those opportunities to provide some of that relief in that community, in that department, has been something that we have, again, just kind of pivoted to.
Mm-hmm. Good, excellent. So thank you. So I want to talk about growth a little bit. I know that My Sister's Fault has grown quite a bit through the pandemic, and you guys have been working very hard to keep your foothold on the market that you've created there. So talk about that. I know you talked about a number of people that you have working for you now, and the specifics as it relates to that. So how have you grown during the pandemic?
So far we have 10 employees and 12 with us too that works there. Before the pandemic, we thought our limitations was the seating area, and we have grown because the potential is not just the seating area. Mm-hmm. By eliminating the tables and the seating area, we have maximized our capacity of producing food and feeding more people than what we used to. Yep. Before, we limit ourselves to take online orders because we thought we would not be able to keep up with the demand, having the dining area full. But now the dining area is just walk in and pick up your food, so we are able to keep producing instead of just focusing on the people that is already sitting there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Before we spend more time, serving customers at the bakery, and that's why we didn't want to move into the online. We felt like we received too many guests at once, and then having online back then, we were like, it might be too much for the kitchen. Sure. And then when we moved completely to online, we noticed that our sales increased by 50%.
Wow. Okay.
We of course, not everybody have the capacity to order online, a lot of our customers. So what we did, we came up with videos on how to order online, tutorials. Nice. And whatever it takes, And even if you couldn't order online, you can place your order over the phone, and we will take it outside to you. We still do it today if you don't feel comfortable, because we have a
limited space.
Sure.
Limited space and all that. So. But I love how he continues to talk about community, and I don't get one of those questions.
Please, yeah, no, yeah.
So when we noticed, how a lot of negativity around the pandemic, and in July, my sister and I, we have to find a way to bring some love to the community. And that's when we came up with
we changed the holidays.
We changed the holiday, and we celebrated, Love in July, and we did raffle where you can nominate a couple that is, a couple from the community, and the couple with the more likes will receive a free dinner from us, a four-course
dinner served at the
bakery. Valentine type, very romantic very setting. Nice. And we did also a whole week of love, so where all of our cakes was inspired by love, chocolate covered strawberries, you name it, and it brought this sense of, in the middle of everything that is happening, we can still share love, we can still love each other, and
absolutely, outstanding. So I know so because of those things, those marketable things that you've put out there, your business has grown. Talk about some of the partnerships that you formed. I know we talked briefly about some of the things that you've been doing as far as partners in the community, and then using some other services. So talk about that.
So mainly will be, our online ordering, our, delivery. One time before we started using formal delivery services, mm-hmm. I was so desperate that I said, you know what, I'm going to take orders for delivery, I'm going to take them out myself. And that's when I noticed that it wasn't for me. It took one day for me to realize. Anyhow, and we have received numerous requests for wholesale.
Okay.
And, we always think we are not we're not gonna be able to supply enough for the demand. We don't have enough help, or we don't have enough ovens. But, we decided to go for it, and we have now created an online ordering site where people can order
Larger amounts.
larger
of-
orders.
Okay.
For
They
events.
can place larger orders, and we notice if you give me a week in advance, we're gonna
We'll
make it
prepare.
happen even if we have to work
So
24
you have other retailers out there selling your product now. So you've
Sure.
grown to be able to provide that kind
Only
of
one.
service.
So far, we only have one, but
Okay.
most of this wholesale is for, for
Private event.
for people that have a family gathering, or
Okay.
they wanna, or they wanna order let's say 100 empanadas, but before we will say, no, we can't do that. We don't have the capacity. And then during the pandemic, we noticed that we could make it happen if we, hire more employees. If we find the ways in our 900 square feet kitchen to, instead of working one shift, have the kitchen working 2 shifts or 3 shifts if necessary to
To get it done.
to get those orders done
Yeah.
out. And we
Partnership.
partner with Shaw Brothers in Rehoboth. They
The
dis-
Wellhouse Cafe?
we use, what is the name?
Kudos
We did Project
Project?
Kudos with them. And then
Okay.
after that, doing the Project Kudos, we end up partnering with them to sell cakes in Rehoboth
Rehoboth
area.
area.
Excellent, excellent. So, Mike, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So, Chaz is very active online. He wants to know some things about bond liquor products, how that's impacted your business. Are you bonding now, or how are
Oh,
you doing
yeah.
that? Can you tell us what that is, first of all, because I think a lot of our audience would like to know that.
Sure.
And then talk about how that's changing your business.
Sure. So 2020 was supposed to be a big year for us because as a small distillery, one of the problems that we face is age. A lot of our products need to be aged for a long time, right? We don't make something and sell it today. In a lot of cases, we may make something and then plan to sell it 4 to 6 years from now. So 2020 was going to be the year that we moved into and launched what are called bottled and bond products. It's a big milestone for a small distillery because it means that you've put together enough whiskey, you've aged it for the right period of time, at least 4 years, and it meets a set of quality standards. It also is, you get less yield per barrel. Now, we had big plans for launching these products, and we, new labels, things that we had invested in. All of that was much more muted than we wanted it to be, but it was still actually a really great milestone for us. When you talk about expanding and growth, immediately when we launched those products, we actually were also able to expand our distribution into 5 states through a partnership with Total Wine because they were interested in those products. They're a fantastic thing that we now bring out to the community here, but from a growth perspective, that was a new revenue stream that touched on us because as we saw challenges in other areas, that was one that stepped up for us.
Yeah, excellent. Another question came in for George. So I know you mentioned the home personal fitness and the coaching and whatnot through Zoom and whatnot. So are you doing both currently still now, or are you mostly back on campus in your buildings?
Yes, so we are mostly back on campus, inside of our building, under our roof and our 4 walls. But we do have now a track that allows for somebody to work out at home if the need is. So that maybe not so much in terms of what we have been experiencing, but more so just the convenience of. So that's something that we have not thought to venture into, but due to what we had to, that's how we migrated to. So we are no longer doing online Zoom classes, but we do offer at-home workouts within our products.
Are you still leasing your products with that at home, or have you gone away from doing
Nope.
that?
Since we're able to open our doors, we speak about the growth, and we've experienced just some of that as well.
Sure.
Just within the culture of our business, it's very just community oriented, just interactive, engaging, and with that, with people being so maybe disclosed or Now we're able to have that and bring that in. I think people were really missing that.
Okay.
So that resulted in a little bit of the growth into our gym. So yeah, we currently do not loan any of our equipment out. Everything's in-house.
So we've got just a few minutes left. I'm still getting a few questions in, but I do want to talk a little bit about what you're most excited about. I asked each of the panelists today what you're most excited about. What's the one thing that you've learned through the pandemic that you're going to keep that is made your business better? And Mike, we talked a little bit about some of the additional services. I think you talked about, if I remember correctly, a food truck and things of that nature. So talk about that. Talk about the things that you're excited about. What did you learn through this process that you're going to keep, and what do you see going forward?
Sure. So, from the distillery specific side, I think we improved our customer service in a way that was something we knew that we needed to do, and that involved investing in technology. It meant we doubled the size of our staff in order to provide a much more hands-on experience with our customers. We lost some things there that we hope to bring back, bringing back tours and finding ways to find more engagement for folks. But from a customer service perspective, I think that we've moved in a direction we always knew we needed to go. We were also able to, and it was on the plan for 2020, I'm very happy that it happened, to launch another business, which is food at the distillery was always one of our biggest, we thought, limiting factors in that we didn't offer food. So we actually partnered with another gentleman and started a food truck last year. It was a pretty kind of scary investment. It ended up being a fantastic use of time and investment, and that is expanding already. We're working on adding on a second food truck with one of the state EDGE grants. So that portion of what we do at what we now kind of look at as our distillery campus is continuing to grow, and we expect to see continued growth in the distillery side as distribution continues to sort of get back where we want it to, and our customer experience brings more and more people in as better engagement in our community.
Same question for you, Angie and Rose. What are you most excited about? What have you learned through this time that you really are going to capitalize on? And where do you see your business going here in the next few months, the next few years?
Yeah, I'm excited about learning that my limitation was just on my head, and we have been pushed to think outside of the box and look for options. Before, I was like very slow in making changes, drastic changes, but now I have adjusted to the new norm. So
yeah, absolutely.
And what we're looking forward, Angie?
We're looking forward to build a bakery.
Okay.
So right before the pandemic, we purchased a lot, and where we're gonna, we have worked with plans, and now we have the plans done. Now we're going to go for permitting, and we're definitely looking forward to have that space again. But what we learned during the pandemic is that our space wasn't big enough to have sit down and walking.
Or functional.
Which I think
functional.
I think that's a tremendous story to tell, because during a pandemic, when most people were shutting their doors and really trying to figure out how to keep going forward, you were launching and growing and figuring out a way to make this thing happen. And to purchase land and be in the process of building your own property is a great story to tell. So we definitely applaud you for that and thank you for that.
Thank you.
George, same question. What are you looking forward to? What's the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so we have, so there are a few things. One, we have learned quite a bit during this time. One being just how important CrossFit Dover is to the members like within our community, and how much they have supported us during probably our toughest time within the last 15 years. Just to learn and understand the magnitude behind that was heartfelt and was huge. So we've learned just the love that the people can share and show during this time, which in return has allowed us to find other ways to invest into our members, right? And not just from a physical standpoint or fitness or health, but just an overall well-being, right? We talk about physical, mental, spiritual. So just being able to further invest into our current membership and future membership is something that we are really excited about.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you to each of you for being here. I really appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate the insight that you provided. Again, from that small business perspective, I think it's important for our audience to know that it is possible to keep going, to be creative, to really think outside the box when you need to keep things moving forward. So I appreciate all of your comments, and thanks for sharing your strategies here today. So at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce and bring back to the stage Dr. Cornelia Johnson. She is the Vice President and Campus Director for our closing remarks. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for our 2021 Central Delaware Economic Summit. In closing, I'd like to first thank our Governor, John Carney, for his leadership and support during these uncertain and challenging times. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our sponsors who supported us today. Thank you to Chesapeake Utilities, Delaware Electric Co-op, Del One Federal Credit Union, and DMAP for being our platinum sponsors, and Delaware State News for being our in-kind media sponsor again this year. I'd also like to thank our keynote speaker, Linda Parkowski of KIP, and our guest panelists for their sharing their stories, their services, their successes, and even their challenges. And the members of the Central Delaware Business and Entrepreneurship Consortium for their help with planning today's event. Please be sure to take a few minutes to complete the brief survey that you'll receive at the end of this event. Your feedback is very important to us and will inform our future event planning. This concludes today's Economic Summit, and we hope that you can join us next year. We'll be having our summit next year on September the 13th, 2022. Please save the date and have a great day.